So we talked a lot about how the app will look like from participants' perspective, and we went through the details of how they see it and so on. But also, if you remember, in the morning we created two accounts. One on the website. One, of course, was researcher account that you all used it. Another one was participant account. So as I mentioned, participants can use the app or the website, but researchers can only use the website. So basically for a participant, whether they create an account through the website and say they're a participant, or they create an account through the app, it's all the same thing. They have an account that works both on the website and in the app, and they can use it. Now we saw how it works on the app. Now if they log in to the website, I wanted to show that how basically show to you that what they will see and what they will experience. By default, it's very limited. They don't see anything on the website. They basically simply see the list of studies that they have participated. We show something as participation score, which for us, it basically translates to their compliance or adherence, how much of the data that we expected them to provide was provided. And this percentage shows that. Now this number, there is a formula for the calculation. We basically calculate how long their phone was on and operational for the period that we expected them to be. Now we consider that as one factor. They might turn off their GPS during that period. We don't include that as a factor here. They might turn off their Bluetooth sensor for Bluetooth for contact pattern data collection. We don't consider that. As long as their phone is on and our app is running on their device, we consider that as being OL compliant. The other thing is surveys. They can see a report on the number of surveys they have responded. For example, here you see that in this study I responded to 6 surveys and 39 surveys was missed. So that's basically to the extent of the information that they can see. I mentioned that they can delete their data. So you can see if I come here, if I go to profile, I have delete data, and then I can select the time, like for example from May 1st, for example at midnight, to May 8th at midnight, and then I can select what type of data I want to delete. If I press delete, it deletes the data completely. There's no copy of this is recorded, there's no copy of this is kept, so the data is completely removed. And that's the only place through the app interface, both for researchers and for participants, that the data can be deleted. So that's.
So how can it be deleted if it's already gone back to
The servers?
Yeah.
We delete from servers. So basically, like, where's my phone? Okay. So my phone collects the data and encrypts it and stores it internally. As soon as it finds an opportunity, an internet that can upload it, it uploads the data. It deletes its own copy.
So it uploads it in an encrypted.
Yeah, it uploads an encrypted form and it deletes its own copy. Now the data is only stored on the server. Server receives it, decrypts the data, stores it in the storage, and just keeps it there. If they come here and say, you know what, I want this and this and this to be deleted, we go to that storage, delete that part, and it's gone. So we delete our copy. Now if there is a separate arrangements of the data to be moved elsewhere, for example, your institution server, we don't have access to that anymore. So then,
Backed up.
yeah, if we delete our backup copy as well. If they ask for it, for every piece of data, we store 2 copies of that, one as a main copy, the other as a backup copy. We delete both of them here. Now, if they, so there's some, actually, I have to mention that this page needs some updates because now we store every data for every study separately, and this right now basically deletes from all studies that the participant has been part of, while this has to go for every study. So this is a change that will happen soon. But then you go, for example, to your study, you say, for this study, I want to delete this data, and it just removes that data from that study.
So does the researcher get a message to say that's been deleted?
No, researcher does not get a message.
So how do you know if you've got data on your server to delete it, like if you've downloaded it?
We record a request. That, for example, a request from this user arrived that asked for data removal for this period of this type. Yeah, so so that part cannot be deleted. but the data itself will be removed. Yes.
Is it possible to limit the scope of this power? So, for example,
No, but go ahead.
I mean, there's a reason for this.
Sure. Yeah, of course. Yeah. I'm kidding.
So, if you're doing a study, and it would make sense to me that you could say that there's like data gathered over the last week or the last month can be downloaded, but if something happens like after the study is done, can they delete the data still?
So this is something that we discussed a lot with one of the studies that we did. We did a study in San Francisco that they used a technique called electronically activated recorder, which I actually wanted to show how that works here as part of the participants interface. So they were concerned that if people can delete their data at any time, it can affect the study. So the policy that they defined was that people have up to 1 week after the end of the study to delete their data. Anything after that will be backed up, and they cannot delete it through this interface anymore. And that's the policy that they went with. So anything like that is completely reasonable, and it makes sense. They still, you can't define those policies here, because then it would require a lot more flexibility in this interface. But what we can do is that after 1 week, we back up the data somewhere else, and even if they come here and delete it, we still have our copy. And then they have to explicitly email someone from the research team and say, you know what, I want my data to be deleted, even your backup copy, and so on. Yes, Robert?
2 questions. One is, who owns the data? If my study finishes, who owns the data? You do, or the...
We have, so in our privacy policy, we have gone through the details explaining this, and we have mentioned that the data is, first and foremost, is owned by participants, and after that is owned by the research team. So the copy that we have, if participants come at any time and they want to delete it, they can delete it, and hence this interface. After that, the data is owned by the research team. They can move the data to their own servers anytime they want and ask us to delete it, and we will do that.
And the second question is, once the study finished, do you have any limited time that you need to keep that data? In Australia, 7 years.
In US and Canada is also 7 years. We can keep it on our servers for 7 years, and there is no problem there. Alternatively, you can move it to your own servers and ask us to delete from ours, which that works as well. You can, for different study sizes, there should be different arrangements. We are going to start a study starting from, I believe, end of May, that they are targeting 4,500 people. And the scale of the data that receive is actually large. So what they decided to do is that they set up clusters on their own institutions, and they still are sending data to our site while people are participating in the study. But as soon as the participation is over, they delete the data on our side and move it to their own servers. So while the participant is part of the study, they can use all these features from the website to monitor the compliance, adherence, and so on, and deal with the study management issues. But when the participant study participation is over, they don't need that anymore. They can just take the data for that participant. And actually, it's a rolling enrollment. So any day that one participant is done, the data is moved to the servers in that institution, and our copy is removed. It helps us as well because it reduces the load of the data that we have to take care of.
And your data is located in Canada, or?
The servers are in University of Saskatchewan, yes.
They're in our lab.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
they're under our lab's direction in the department.
it's in what's the department?
Department of Computer Science.
No, the computational some.
The Computational Epidemiology and
Lab,
Public
yeah.
Health Informatics Lab, which is my lab. It's under our jurisdiction, and they are maintained officially by the Department of Computer Science staff members.
Yes.
Professionally, in terms of just making sure they're properly curated, there's appropriate robustness to failure, in the sense there's duplicate disks, that sort of thing. So to ensure that data is not lost. Some institutions value the fact that the data is stored at a university, and so for for many ethics boards, that provides a level of trust and so on. But other boards might prefer otherwise. And as Mohammed had indicated, there is the option of, with appropriate levels of sort of preparation and agreement, to locate those elsewhere. So the data wouldn't be going over to Canada, it would be going here at UTS or here at UNXW or at Griffiths or what have you.
You're saying that's directly to those institutions and not via.
It can be both. It can, and when I say there are these options, because they require like separate arrangements for each of them. So exactly, but like the maximum level of security, I think, for satisfying the requirements of ethics board is to keep the data in the country completely. So basically, the data is collected from participants in this country and remains in this country and never crosses the border. That is possible. The data is collected and directly sent to the server here, but requires a lot more arrangements. And basically what we do in that case is that we replicate everything that you see here on the servers in your institution. And that requires a fair bit of work, but it is possible. Alternatively, we can just say, you know what, while the participant is part of the study, let's use this, and as soon as it's over, we just move the data collected to your institution. It's simpler. Yes?
Just maybe a little note, I'm doing a survey with the panel company, Qualtrics, online. And their data is stored in the US. And so for our ethics people, they were concerned that because the US has different laws for whether the government can access that data instead of what Canada has. So we had to specify even though the population we're studying is American, we had to specify that in the consent form to say like the data is going to be stored in the US. And as part of our experiment, we have to, when the experiment's over, we delete it from the Qualtrics data and we move it to Canada, and it stays only in Canada and is removed from the Qualtrics servers. So when I asked the Qualtrics people if we could have a Canadian server, that's not something that's like big on the list of priorities. So that was a difficult thing. So basically just accepted the fact that while the survey is taking place, the data is being stored in the US and then it gets moved afterwards. So that's a pretty standard approach in terms of industry.
Some systems use a cloud service called AWS or Amazon Web Services. You might have heard about it. There are other providers as well, including IBM, Microsoft, and Google. They usually have, they divide the world to different regions, and then they have servers in different regions. I believe Amazon is the most prominent one, and they have servers in US, in Canada, in Europe, and in East Asia as well. I'm not sure about Australia. Then one setting that many studies do is that they leverage the servers and the hardware that Amazon Web Services provide. Those are actually quite costly. Usually for servers, they cost around a few $1,000s a year for a very average computer to rent. But well, the advantage is that then it's managed in the country that you are targeting. So this is also practice that's used often. Just want to mention.
Most of our universities already accept Qualtrics, for example. So
Yeah.
it's not, I don't think it would be better.
So
Amazon Web Services does have
Australia?
servers in Australia.
Yes.
Yeah, in Sydney, in fact.
well, there you go. So they do have servers here as well. Yeah. Yes.
Ethica's backup data, is that kept on the same physical site, or is it?
And the same physical site on the different machine. Yeah. So, but it's the same physical site. Like geographically, it's the same place, the same building. Well, actually, no. There's a third copy of that, which is geographic. No. So yeah, it's in the same place. Yeah, I think it's the same place. It's just fairly complicated. I have to think. Okay, where was that? So yeah, it's the same place.
Mohammed?
Yes.
So just a point of clarification. I know there are some studies that you and I have run with this in conjunction with U.S. partners, where they have elected not to tell participants about the ability to log in to the website. They were concerned about Hawthorne effects reasons, et cetera. And I'm wondering, did those participants, had they been informed about it, would they have the ability still to log in? Or
No.
is it's only enabled and disabled on a per study basis?
So that's
Their
what I was
ability
going to
log
talk about
into the
next.
website as a participant.
Yeah, that's what I was going to. I'll talk about that
Okay.
actually right after this.
Okay.
So anyway, so one thing I wanted one thing was about the data storage that we talked about. Now they can see here, like for example, here is I just converted my account to a participant account, and you can see I have the list of all the studies that I've been part of. If I click here, I can see the list of responses that I have provided. Now, for example, I want to see all the responses I've given to air quality advisory. Go, and it just shows me all my responses, which has been just one. And it just, did you hear any advisory? No. Did this advisory change your plan for spending time outside? No. So, for now, per study, we either enabled or disabled it, basically participants' access to this website. So during the study participation, they could either have access or their access could be blocked until the study is over, and then they could access. One change that is right now is actually in progress and will be rolled out within the next few weeks is that then every participant has access to this, but then you can define whether the survey responses should be shown to them or not. Then regardless of the study that they're part of, they still can delete their data, but they will not be able to see their responses, or they will be able to see the responses that they have provided. This is one type of the interface that they can access. The other one is one of the data sources is something called electronically activated recorder. Basically, it's sampling ambient audio periodically using the phone. It's used in quite a few psychological studies. And so participants download the app or carry a recorder with them, and the recorder periodically records 5 minutes of ambient audio every half an hour or every 1 hour. We used it in 3 studies now in the States. They never had, I don't know how probably because they had been more involved with their ethics application, submitted more ethics applications in this context. They were okay with the data being stored in Canada. So they did not necessarily need the data to be moved in the States. But what they had is that participants could log in and actually see the audio that was recorded here. I will show you how it works. So for example, they would come here and they would click here and they would click on the audio recordings. And then they would say, for example, show me, for example, the recordings from May 9th, apply, go. Yeah, and it shows all the recordings that was captured from me on that day. And then I can either listen to it, or if I want it to be deleted, I can press it here and it says, this data will be deleted, are you sure? And if I press yes, it basically deletes that record. This is an example of how data can be fed back to participants. So this is very simple, but what I wanted to emphasize is that on the website we have a lot more flexibility, because we don't have to get, unlike the App Store or Google, or our application on App Store or Google Play, we don't have to get permission from Apple or Google what we want to do. We can change it in any form that we want. And so it gives us a lot more flexibility. Like for example, if a given study requires the GPS data to be shown as an intervention to participants in a certain form, for example, did you know that today you commuted, like for example, 10 kilometers or 20 kilometers? Or do you want it to show, for example, a graph averaging the amount of time that people spend driving? It's a lot easier to do those components on the website. And then either ask people to access this on the website, ask participants to access it on the website, or design the website that is mobile friendly, and then basically just ask them to access this through their smartphone. So this is one example of it. We only show that we only have used it in 4 studies right now. 3 of them were using electronically activated recorder, and 1 of them was using survey responses that they wanted people to download their survey responses. So we used it in that one as well. So that's, I press no here. Okay, that's pretty much it. Any questions?
Mohammed, do we want to let people, for that study that they went through creating earlier, do we want to allow them to then take their phone and enroll in that?
Yeah, that's one thing that, like, if there's no if there's no questions about this, we can just wrap this up. That's basically everything that was there about the user interface. Let me log out from here, and yeah, so now we can basically just maybe if you guys are done creating the studies for the projects that we discussed, maybe you can share the study number with the rest of the team here, and so everyone can enroll in that study on their phone as well. And then, so by tomorrow we will have some. By tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, we'll have some data to look at as well. Good.
So TAs, do you want to help people register and make sure that they can see the interface then on their phones? So the idea is you're going to take your app that you downloaded earlier for your iPhone or for your Android device, and you're going